Welcome to Kensington Market. Today, you will be introduced to the history of the Jewish community in Toronto, a community that established themselves and thrived in this exciting and eclectic part of our city, which has been a destination for new Canadians for decades. But first, let's introduce the Jewish immigrants who first settled here and made Kensington Market their home. The origins of the Jewish people go back thousands of years to the region now known as the Middle East. It was there that Judaism, the religion of the Jewish people, took shape. Like Christianity and Islam, Judaism is a monotheistic religion. Judaism's primary religious text is the Torah, which is the name given to the 5 books of Moses found at the beginning of the Bible. These books form the basis of all Jewish law and practice. Over the course of many centuries, the Jewish people have migrated to different parts of the world, including Europe, Asia, North Africa, and North America, bringing with them their customs and religion and establishing communities. Fast forward to 1880, and there are approximately 7.7 million Jews in the world, with 3/4 of them confined to a Russian-controlled region in Eastern Europe called the Pale of Settlement, part of today's Poland, Ukraine, Belarus, and Lithuania. Most Jews lived in small market towns called shtetls. They worked at a variety of jobs, raised families, went to school, and enjoyed music, arts, and culture. Jews in this part of the world spoke a language called Yiddish. Then, in 1881, Tsar Alexander II, who was known to be kind to the Jews, was assassinated. False rumors that Jews were responsible for the assassination quickly spread, and angry mobs began attacking Jewish towns, setting fires to homes, and enacting violence and murder against the inhabitants. These massacres, known as pogroms, left millions of Jews feeling terrorized in their towns and villages. Later that year, the new Tsar, Alexander III, introduced new laws that imposed harsh restrictions on Jews, further limiting their right to own land, their ability to move around the country freely, to gather and to worship, and to attend university. Life became more difficult and dangerous for the Jews, and over the next 4 decades, 2.5 million Jews left Eastern Europe for a better life in North America. The mass migration of Jews to North America coincided with other historic migration movements, including those of the Irish and the Italians. Many of those immigrants who came to Toronto settled in a neighborhood called St. John's Ward. Today, this part of the city is occupied by City Hall and Nathan Phillips Square, where the big Toronto sign is, just west of the Eaton Centre. While not a large neighborhood, the ward served as the reception area for Jewish, Italian, Black, and Chinese immigrants. As a result, residents often had to deal with overcrowding. Health issues were also a concern. Lack of proper sanitation and poor living conditions generally made for a difficult life. Despite these challenges, Toronto's newly arrived Jewish community built schools and synagogues. They established businesses that catered to the specific needs of the community, such as providing kosher food. In effect, they recreated the life they had known in the shtetl. By the 1910s, the population had increased substantially. Residents were being squeezed out of the ward because of overcrowding. Housing was being demolished to accommodate the new hospitals being built in the area. Others in the community had prospered in business and were seeking new opportunities outside the ward. It was time to write a new chapter in Toronto's Jewish history. It was peddlers who first identified the area around Kensington Avenue as a suitable spot for establishing a community. Prior to the movement of Jews from the ward, there was no market in the area. Instead, it was a residential neighborhood, predominantly Irish in character. It was not until the mid-1910s when the first Jewish businesses began to pop up and Kensington Market began to take shape. The concentration of Jews in Kensington Market was partly due to the anti-Semitism that prevented Jews from moving into non-Jewish neighborhoods, and partly due to personal choice. People wanted to live in an area where they knew others like themselves and where there were businesses that supported their way of life. Once again, Jews established synagogues and Jewish schools, as well as social clubs, a Yiddish theater, a home for the elderly, a hospital, and other hubs that allowed people to gather, discuss politics, and stay connected to the old world. At its peak, during the 1920s, 30s, and 40s, the market was a bustling place where merchants would sell goods, first from carts parked in front of their houses, and then from storefronts carved out of their front living rooms. You could buy everything that you needed right in the market, with little need to go anywhere else. There, Jews were able to live and work in Yiddish, the language they had spoken back home. Many in the community found employment in the garment trade, making clothes where working conditions were often poor. Others ran their own businesses. Examples of Jewish-owned businesses from this period include bakeries, fish stores, grocers, poultry stores, restaurants and delis, pharmacies, and bookstores. By 1931, there were 45,305 Jews living in or around Kensington Market. Spadina Avenue, just east of the market, was the lifeline of the Jewish community from the 1920s to the 1950s. This is right in the heart of today's Chinatown. Following the end of the Second World War in 1945, the Jewish community had grown and they began to move north into the suburbs. Where Spadina Avenue had once been at the heart of the Jewish community in Toronto, that distinction now falls to Bathurst Street. While much of the community made its way north, a small segment of the community remained downtown. In addition to the Jewish Community Centre on Spadina Avenue at Bloor Street, there remain two functioning synagogues in the market itself, the Kiever Synagogue on Bellevue Avenue and Anshe Minsk Synagogue on St. Andrew Street. The departure of the Jewish community from Kensington Market left a blueprint for other immigrant groups who came after. Because of this, the market continues to serve as a hub for new immigrants, one that is reused and repurposed time and time again. It also continues to function as a market, much in the same way it did back when it was known as the Jewish market.